We have a quorum. We have 3 by phone and 2 in person. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Burns, will you lead us in that?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, to the republic,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. And do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
All right, Ms. Burns has made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Brad.
All right, Mr. George has made a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, are there any opposed? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. And first item on this action agenda is Semester 2 planning and calendar options for middle and high schools.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Hill.
Mr. Chair, there'll be a couple of speakers on this. We have a PowerPoint for the board. Is that up on your screen, sir? If not, you can look at the big screen right here. Ms. Burns, do you have that in front of you?
I can.
Yep.
Just want to make sure you guys are looking at it. Does everybody on the telephone have a copy of it? Should be in their email, correct? Okay. Board members, is everybody able to see the PowerPoint this time?
We're good. I'm good. This is Cindy.
I'm good.
Mr. Smith on?
Yes, I'm good.
We do. All right. Dr. Aiken's going to begin this presentation, and we'll just take it from there.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Wanted to come to you today to give you some updates on the processes that district staff and along with our school principals and stakeholders have been working to try and prepare for the beginning of the second semester. This will work or not. Is it the up one?
Above your head. The projector above your head. There you go.
Thank you. Just to go back to the beginning of November, our first step in this process was to send out an initial intent form survey to all of our online students. To take you back even a little bit further, when we first started this school year, one of the initial steps that we took when the state required that we operate both under Plan B initially and Plan C, we had put in place the request that any of our families that wanted to do Plan C, that we asked they commit for a semester in order to ensure integrity of the instruction and some processes. During that time, we have tried to work with individual students that demonstrated great need to return. A lot of our students with IEP plans, some of our students with language plans were students we kind of worked with. So one of the first things we wanted to do was begin determining the process for those that were still working online. What were their intentions for the second semester? We had told all of our parents they would have an opportunity to reassess. That initial intent forms went out the first week of November. Since that time, our schools have also been calling, writing, emailing, trying to get as many responses from any of our online parents as we possibly could. We have a screenshot of the dashboard. The current online responses indicated roughly a nearly identical 50-50 split between students who wish to remain online and those students who now wanted to come back. That's what you can see on the screen now. We had about 1,483 students that we were trying to contact. The intent form through social media and the email process, we were able to reach 1,174. And that's where you can see that based on those numbers, again, it's almost an identical split. We had 586 indicating they would like to return, 588 that were wanting to stay online. I did want to update the board and say that since that window closed, our schools did reach out and continue reaching out to try to get more answers and more clarity. Just wanted to let you know, Burgon Middle, it shows 13. We actually have 19 that wish to return now. Cape Fear Middle ended up with 86 at this point. Pender Lee from middle school, just the middle school portion of Pender Lee, had 20. Surf City Middle School was closer to 69. Topsail Middle School, 130 wish to return. And West Pender Middle School, 57. For our high schools, Heidi Trask currently had around 87 students that wish to return. Pender High School, 111. And Topsail High School, 165. So the actual results would be higher for the yes to return than what this showed. But our schools did try very hard to get to as many people we could respond to as we possibly could. Just also to refresh, so unlike our elementaries where the state now allows us to operate under a Plan A, all of our 6th through 12th grade schools and classrooms must still operate with the 6-foot classroom social distance requirement. So the next step for our schools had been to take the numbers that I just shared and begin looking at their sections and master schedules for the second semester and trying to determine that based on the number of students returning, what would be our capacity issues in those classrooms. So obviously that kind of depends on the size of the classroom at the particular school and the particular furniture that's in there. So we've been taking a look at that. And principals have worked hard with staff trying to look at how could they absolutely either minimize any unnecessary furniture, move furniture around, look at scheduling if we possibly could, also but maintaining that 6-foot requirement for 6th through 12th grade. The next step that we went to was looking at, based on that and based on the 2-cohort model that we are currently in for middle and high school, we looked at, well, how many sections would we have concerns with either already being over capacity, at capacity, or within one, should a student move into the district and we need to try to give them an opportunity. So based on that research, for our middle schools, this was our current numbers. Burgon Middle School had one section that was going to be right at capacity. As a result, Burgon Middle School reported that they felt like they could relatively smoothly accommodate any returning online students. Cape Fear Middle had 6 classroom sections that would be at or over with some adjustments to cohorts. So for example, any online students that might currently be classified as cohort B but online, with the ability to move them between A and B if they return in person, possibly looking at some sections and some tweaks to which homeroom students were in, that kind of thing. They did feel like they could still make it work. Pender Lee had 3 sections, all I think in 6th grade. Again, it looks like a bigger percentage, but in terms of number of middle school sections, Pender Lee doesn't have as many. They too thought that without too great of a struggle, they would be able to accommodate all of their returning students. Surf City Middle School, 56 sections, which is about 32% of all of their various sections. Like Cape Fear Middle, it would take some work, but they felt like they could make it happen. Topsail Middle School, 22 sections, which is roughly 50% of their total. Like Surf City Middle and Cape Fear, it will take some work, but they were comfortable in saying they thought they could stick with 2 cohorts. West Pender Middle, 3 sections, I believe also all in 6th grade. They likewise thought that without too much struggle, they could maintain a 2-cohort model and still maintain the Plan B requirements that we are under. It will be tight. We will not have lots and lots of room, but we thought we, 1, would meet any legal requirements, and 2, should we have students who enroll and move in, at least as an initial wave, they have some space, they thought they could make things happen. For our high schools, Heidi Trask had 43 sections that would be at or over, which represents about 15.6% of all of their sections. 31 of the 43 are actually already over. Pender High School, 37 sections at or over, 20, which represents 21% of their total. 24 of the 37 are already over. Topsail High School had 21, which is not as many. 20 of those were over. Several of their ones were already, if we were under 2 cohorts, would be closer to 30 students in the classroom. Some differences also between the two is, of course, in middle school, you have grade level courses. It's 8th grade math, it's 7th grade math. It's really a subject grade level, it's not a specific course. With our high schools, one of the challenges, besides the number that are already over, is it's very course specific. So you can't just move around English 4, Math 4, Carpentry, CTE courses. They're very specific, so they're not ones we can just generally split, move around, and assign different people to. The other issue is that in 8th grade, you can kind of change a student. As long as you're getting 8th grade math, they're going to be okay. For our high school students, especially our second semester seniors and second semester juniors, we had a lot of constraints. We may have students who need very specific courses to graduate. We can't just necessarily reassign them to an emptier classroom where there may be more room. For our second semester juniors, they're in the process of applying for their colleges. They may be working towards certain specific pathways, either in CTE or other kind of pathways, where they need very specific courses. So our high schools don't have some of the scheduling flexibility that our middle schools do. So based on the intent forms collected, current classroom capacity, scheduling flexibility, and the continuing expectation of operating under Plan B requirements from the state, the data seem to indicate for middle school, they thought they could maintain the 2-cohort model as we have been operating under up to this point. For the high schools, they felt compelled for us to go back to the 3-cohort model, at least initially. We would obviously continue to maintain numbers, and should any intent form changes between now and January 7, or even after that, if we notice an increase in students who want to leave, or if some of the students who said they're coming back, in fact, change their mind at the last second, we will certainly reevaluate. But if the numbers are what the intent forms indicate, because of the concerns with class capacity, they would return to a 3-cohort model. So I think that's our first kind of big moment, and filling in the board and kind of requesting a guidance from the board for the next steps, if I've explained that correctly.
Mr. Chair, we just wanted to pause and make sure we didn't put too much out there before we asked the board to kind of give us any questions, anything they wanted to ask us. Basically, what we're saying is we're trying to remain on the cohort and have as many kids in school as possible. At this time, it is possible to remain that way in middle school. I will say, though, that I've talked to several principals, as Pender County continues to grow. I mean, we have not seen a decrease in population based on COVID. It's actually people still moving here. That we'll still monitor it. If the state changes regulations, we'll obviously try to, offer any other accommodations as far as students coming in. But at this time, we believe this is the maximum amount of students we can get into our schools and still meet state regulations. It maintains the norm, or what we have now with elementary. Same thing with middle school. It's just the high school, due to their situation, it's going to be a little tougher. We're going to have to go back with more kids coming back in. We're going to have to go back to 3 cohorts.
Dr. Hill, with that being said, how close are we to going to 3 cohorts with the middle school? Are we like this close? Are we? I would assume with these numbers that we're pretty. There's going to be a tipping point soon.
And you're correct, and Dr. Aiken.
So the middle school principal, well, all of our principals want as many students in person as much as possible. So I feel like I need to lead with that. That impetus and that motivation drove a lot of the middle schools as they tried to tweak the situation. It is going to be tight. That's kind of why I really wanted to kind of distinguish. There's really, between our middle schools, there's 3 in one camp and 3 in another. For 3 of our schools, if the intent forms are indicative of what actually happens, they felt pretty comfortable. Not great, but any wave of enrollment would not be too concerning to them. For our traditionally largest middle schools, Cape Fear, Surf City, and Topsail Middle, they're going to need to be able to make some changes. The most common one being, if I have been an online-only Plan C student and I've been labeled as Cohort A, they're going to need to be able to have some flexibility that student might need to come on B. Because obviously those who left and those who want to return, it's not even between the 2 cohorts. they're going to need to be able to make some of those schedule changes. They have some greater flexibility to say which middle school team might you be on, and they're going to probably have to change some homerooms. They're obviously not going to take anybody out if a middle school student has been taking a high school course. I mean, they're not going to do that. But among your middle school courses, they're going to have to exercise some flexibility about maybe which teacher you have for the second semester or which homeroom. With doing all of those strategies, they're tight, but they think they can do it based on the pattern of enrollment so far. It was not going to be without some stress. The blood pressure will be up, but they thought they could do it. We've asked several times. We've had meetings each Monday for the last, I think, 3 weeks, kind of going through this. But they think that they can do this, but I think it was important that we wanted the community and the board to know that it won't be empty classrooms. Even under Plan B, it's probably going to be as many kids in that classroom as we can make happen. If they had the same scheduling restrictions or sort of inflexibility that our high schools do, we wouldn't be able to do it. But it's because middle school's nature is a little bit different. They've made it work to try to make it happen among their students. Depending on where the board would like to go, obviously the next step will be to move from gauging interest to asking parents to truly commit. Are you in fact coming back? Are you in fact deciding you might prefer online? Those numbers will make the absolute final decision, but if we go with what we've gotten to this point, the individual parent phone calls they've made, middle school felt like they could probably make it happen.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, so working with that information, instructional services, our group put together 3 calendar options. And the first one, which is probably the least preferable, is the 3 cohort model every 3 weeks, based upon lots of information that we received from instructional services, parents, students, staff. This is not optimal. And it, of course, reduces the face time. And if you can see at the very bottom, in terms of the cohort A, B, and C, the number of days of in-person instruction, there is a variance, a pretty wide variance between the cohorts. The second, more preferable option, which is what we had kind of initially thought of, was an AA, BB, CC day, given those 3 cohorts, starting out with when we come back directly after Christmas break. And so looking at that, at the very bottom, you can see that there is less of a differentiation in terms of range-wise between the amount of days difference between cohort A, B, and C. So it is workable. And then based upon a suggestion, I must give a shout out to Caroline Godwin, who was the one that suggested it in the small group high school principals meeting, that when we come back from the holiday break and we start on Thursday the 7th with the cohort A, and then on Friday cohort B and cohort C on Monday, repeat C on Tuesday, then we can do the AA, BB, CC days. And if you take a look at the bottom of that calendar, they all end up with the same number of days in person for second semester. And that is our recommended option specific to this. Evens out everything. Everybody gets exactly what they need, barring any unforeseen circumstances. Okay? And then I think this is kind of the tail end of it, and of course these were the requested high school graduation dates.
And I know there was some inquiry board about the timing, if we do them all on the same date, that we had them split up. The schools are trying to put that together, but they would like a little bit more time to talk with some stakeholders in that about when to offer that, because it'll be summertime. We don't, the heat will be up, and they'd like to offer the best times and set that up. So they will have travel time between those actual start events at each one of those schools. This time, Mr. Chairman, that concludes our cohort and calendar presentation. We'd ask that the board consider that and give us direction.
All right. Does anyone have any discussion, any of this?
Well, I do thank everybody for going back to the table and bringing up another discussion about graduation dates. I do appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
And if, I'm okay, if they need a little bit more time to keep discussing it. But just know, there's already families who are planning travel for other family members to come see their students graduate, or at least, we don't know what COVID's gonna hold. But I think people are already starting to make plans if they have seniors.
Right, and we're just trying to lock in on a day. So that-
Gotcha.
Yeah, yes, ma'am, just for that reason, to go ahead and get that out there with the calendar and the cohorts at the same time.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
No, this is Cindy Fontana. I'm just seconding what Ms. Burns just said. They're just, the parents are getting antsy and nervous, and I know we've got to do it right. We just, like you said, just got to make a decision as soon as possible.
All right. Well, I mean, do y'all want to act on this now, or we need to do it quickly? We need to do it, we meet again next week.
And Mr. Chair, if it's possible, could we take a vote? So we need to
That's
start
what
intent forms, yes, sir. I think the goal of the board was to give the parents as much lead time as possible.
I
to make
agree.
decisions.
Mr. Chairman, this is Ken Smith. I make a motion to approve the request that was presented to the board for calendar.
All right, Mr. Smith has made a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, this is Brad. Second that motion if we're recommended calendar option for the recommended 3, I guess it would be.
Yep. Mr. Smith, is your motion for the recommendation?
It is.
Okay. Mr. George seconds, so go ahead, I'm sorry.
Second.
Okay, Mr. George is seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Do we need to call the roll for it, Brandon?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Burns
Aye.
and Mr. George,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
and Ms. Fontana.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, item 2 is class size waiver request. Dr. Blumenreich.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, what you have in front of you is a waiver request to be forwarded to NCDPI. After all of the comings and goings, face-to-face, in-person, virtual, there was a lot of movement. DPI had put off the normal timeline for the legislative class size requirement sampling. So at this point, when looking at all of the elementary schools and specifically K through 3, we had one school, which was Topsail Elementary, with one classroom over 21, which was the legislated class size. And so we are putting in a waiver for that. And there are some strings attached to that, of course, but this will allow us then to continue at that level for the remainder of the school year. So we're requesting permission to submit that waiver to DPI.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the waiver request?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the class size waiver request.
All right, Ms. Burns has made a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Cindy Fontana, second.
All right, Ms. Fontana has made a second. So we'll start Ms. Burns,
Aye.
Ms. Fontana,
Aye.
Mr. George,
Aye.
and Mr. Smith.
Aye.
The vote's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, could I ask Dr. B a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
B, there's been articles coming out from around the state about schools, about the state as a whole, public school system losing in excess of 65,000 children. Some school districts, Wake County, I think, are reporting they've lost over 8,000. Are we seeing a loss of across the board?
We have taken a dip in some areas, but we also keep on gaining students. So right before we had started, right at the beginning of the school year, we were actually well in excess of our numbers. They dipped, of course, when we had started out, and now our numbers are coming back up. So we're a little bit under for our projected allotment, but not by much. And I can get you those exact figures right after I kind of sit down and pull them. We've just looked at them actually about 10 minutes ago.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, anyone else on any of these items? If not, we need a motion to go into closed session. Yep.
The Pender County Board of Education will enter into closed session, subject to the advice of attorney pursuant to NC General Statute 143-318.11A1 and A6 to prevent the disclosure of confidential personnel information under GS 115C-319. The board will also go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A3 to consult with the board's attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege. This closed session is necessary to consider to give instructions to the board's attorney. Continue. Concerning Burns Fisher versus the Pender County Board of Education et al.
Okay, Ms. Burns has made a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Brad George, second.
All right, Mr. George has made a second. So we'll go down the roll. Ms. Burns.
Aye.
All right. Mr. George
Aye.
and Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Fontana.
Aye.
All right, vote is unanimous. We're in a closed session.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to come out of closed session.
All right, Ms. Burns has made a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Ms. Fontana has made a second, so we'll start down the roll. Ms. Burns,
Aye.
Ms. Fontana,
Aye.
Mr. George,
Aye.
and Mr. Smith.
Aye.
All right, so we're back in open session. Does anyone have any questions or comments for anyone here before we go?
No, I'm good, Mr. Chair.
Okay. The only thing I'll say is I hope that at some point we'll take a look at the North Carolina School Board Association and evaluate our relationship with them going forward. But otherwise, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right, Ms. Burns has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Ms. Fontana has made a second. So, Ms. Burns,
Aye.
Ms. Fontana,
Aye.
Mr. George,
Aye.
and Mr. Smith.
Aye.
And that's unanimous. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.